All right, friends, welcome back to another episode of Healedish. This is part 2 of Anna's story. So if you have not already listened to part 1, please go and listen to that, or else you will be very confused. So with all of that being said, let's go ahead and jump into part 2.
I ended up going too far with this boy. And so we had gone too far. It's really interesting now looking back at it because I made way too big of a deal out of it. I made it just so large. Because again, the purity thing was like so big for me. And now I look back at it and I'm just like, wow, that was just not that big of a deal. And you were really dramatic.
Yeah.
But ended up breaking up with the guy. And, because that's what you're supposed to do.
Was it because of guilt? Is that why you broke up with him?
Yeah, it was a lot of guilt. It was a lot of, I think it was mostly just guilt and shame of being like, I can't be with this person anymore because I've just messed up and we went too far and we can't. And so it was really, really hard. I ended up calling my parents and telling them because that was what I was supposed to do. And I was still 17, even though I was out of the house. Told my parents and they reacted very kindly. They're very sweet about everything. But the gentleman that I was in a relationship with, he ended up going to our church leadership and telling them what happened. And I don't blame him for that at all. I understand why he did it. And it turned out to be one of the worst decisions for us. It was so bad. So I worked at the church as a janitor, and I was mopping the floors one night, a couple days after it had happened, and I suddenly get physically yanked into a room. We had assigned mentors that were over us, and my mentor yanked me into a room. She sat me down with the leader of the school, and so I was 17 and he was 27. And he then began to ask me...
Who was the leader of the school?
Yeah, the leader of the school was 27. Yeah.
Okay.
And he began to ask me just the most horrific questions about, what happened, who did what, did you take off his shirt, did he take off yours, oh, did you... I mean, I don't want to use super explicit language, but think of the most...
So he was asking for a
details.
Sequence of events?
Yes, and very, very specific details. Wanted me to go over everything down to I'm going to be blunt for the sake of people understanding, but to the point where he was like, well, did you climax? Did he climax? He wanted every detail of all of it. And I had, again, good girl, had really never done anything, had never really been in trouble to that extent. I thought that was normal. I thought that was what happened to people because I'd never experienced it. And I had so much shame on top of everything that I was just I guess this is it. So I'm sobbing. It was awful, so terrible. And, I have some people that are telling me, well, you just need to stiff arm him, never talk to him again. And then I have other people that are asking me from the church, it got around, it was a mega church. It got around, all the staff started talking about it. And I had staff members calling me and asking me to come over to their house because I was a worship leader at the church. I think because of my family, honestly, I had a lot of favor at that church.
Yeah.
I kind of got to do things that most people, especially 17-year-olds, shouldn't be able to do. So everybody knew me pretty well. And I had staff members calling me over and being well, now in the eyes of God, you're now married, so you should probably just marry him. Or he's never going to forget, so you probably just need to, for the sake of, his heart, you probably just need to marry him because you don't want to do that to him. And my experience of my childhood of my parents being amazing and so kind, and even the way they reacted to me in that moment, was so amazing to then have just this whiplash of the complete opposite reaction from all of these people. And it was just, and they took me off the worship team. It was everything I hadn't experienced at my parents' church. They were like, you can't lead worship anymore. You can't, but then they still let me do all the behind the scenes work. So I was like, I'm not good enough to worship, but I'm good enough to go door to door and hand out flyers for outreach. What? what is like,
Yeah.
how is this
You're
like
not good enough to be seen.
correct? And so
Really.
really, I mean, and it just felt like, and there of course are like, I understand there is a case by case situation. I was so repentant, like so devastated. So it threw me so hard that I was like, I can't believe like the thing that I love most is being like taken from me. This is so wild. And
And just the way that they treated you. Like, let's not skip over the fact that these are adults who are all gossiping. Okay.
yeah,
They're all spreading this info, like point blank. That's what it
yeah,
is. People, not everybody needed to know this information. And they're all going around and sharing this story. And you don't know how many details these people
yeah.
are also spreading because this man had
All
all
of
of
the
the
details.
details.
Yeah. And I ended up being like, it's the only time in my life, well, until recently in deconstruction, but like that I'd been like sincerely depressed. Like, so devastated, couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I mean, I would forget about it for like moments at a time. Like the rest of the time, it's just on me, like so heavy. And I stopped doing everything. I stopped going to work. I stopped going to school. I stopped going to church. I didn't do anything. And then they ended up calling my parents and telling them like, hey, your daughter's not going to class anymore. Like she hasn't been seen. She hasn't. So they didn't know what had happened. I didn't tell them about that conversation because I was so shameful and I didn't know that that wasn't normal. And so when it came to this conversation of like, we heard you're not going to class, we heard you're not going to church, and they were really disappointed in me. They had asked me to go back, of course, like you need to go back. And I was just like, I can't go back. I really can't. And they didn't understand that it was because I was like so mortified by this experience with this church leader and him asking me all these questions where it's like, that's the leader of the school. Like, I don't want to see this guy. I don't want to. And they thought it was just that I was like ashamed of what happened, which was part of it, but more so the leader. And I end up, having this conversation with my mom, and she says, baby, like you never know how strong you are until you do it. So like, I just want you to do like one day at a time. And so I ended up going back and just kind of grit my teeth and finished out the year. And years later, when I realized, because it took me years to realize how jacked up that was, when I realized and told my parents that, I mean, they were mortified. Like they were like, why didn't you tell us? Like what, like we would have never made you stay. Like we would have never asked you. We would have been in a U-Haul booking it to come pick you up. Like that would have never happened. Like we did not. So, and that's my parents, like that's the experience I had with them. So again, it just like goes to prove like how absolutely jarring that experience was for me to have like polar opposite reaction.
Yeah. And you're being told you deserve it. Like you deserve this level of skepticism, like because, or, what they're giving to you, because if you are only experiencing this because you made this decision. And so I don't know, you're just more willing to kind of let things slide, especially when you don't know what's normal. You don't know if this is how all churches deal with these things. And how do you feel about it now, looking back and knowing that he was 27? He is a young guy. And you guys are alone.
Yeah. Whenever I was, when I first realized what had actually happened, where I was like, wow, that was really jacked up. Like that was abusive on his part. Like that was really sick.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, because I was 22-ish when I like realized what had happened. I remember thinking like, well, he was like young and like he was and I remember like giving him grace and being like, he's just this young guy and da-da. And now I'm 28 now and like I've served in like youth positions at like 25-ish. And even at 25, I was thinking I would never think to ask any of these kids these questions. I would never have even remotely close to the topic of like, that is so not my place. That's not appropriate. Like I just
So
couldn't.
inappropriate.
I like want to have grace in the sense that I'm like, unfortunately, that was probably what you were taught. You were probably taught to do that.
I don't know. You're giving him more grace
Isn't
than I
that
am.
crazy?
I'm like,
I know.
I'm like, I just feel like he's sick. Okay,
I know.
but that's just me.
Here's the thing: is I'm like, well, I do know. Now I'm like throwing shade at everybody. I'm like, I know his whole family, so. But no, I just, it's gross. It's yuck. I don't like it. It's so.
Gross.
I mean, it took a lot, like, especially years later, to realize it. I was just like, oh, thought that was done. Like, now I have to hash all of this, but it's really, I can't fathom it. Like, I can't fathom asking anybody those questions, and especially in that setting. I was 17. It wasn't even
a
like
minor,
I was a minor.
and those details.
Yeah.
It's like even him asking what exactly happened, to me, that's even too far, because you could just say we struggled with our purity or something like that, but even to ask explicitly what happened, I feel like that's too far. But to ask for a play-by-play of, and then what happened, no, it's so sick. And I feel like you don't realize, and I didn't realize how wrong things were until I became the age that these people were. Like with my ex, once I became 30, I realized he married a 20-year-old, and that makes me want to throw up.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, in what world as a 31-year-old would I marry a 21-year-old girl?
Yes.
I just, it's
that's, and it is interesting. Like, I mean, I've had conversations with my parents about it since, and they I remember them asking me like, could you ever imagine us asking you anything like that? And even as like my parents, like they were like, can you ever imagine? And I was like, no, I guess not. And they're like, yeah, like what? Like they weren't blaming me at all, but they were just like, oh, because they felt so heartbroken that they didn't know, and that they not allowed it to happen. But you know what I mean? Like I had to go back, and I had to, so it's.
Well, these systems are built on shame.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason why people get away with this kind of behavior is because the people who are being victimized feel so much shame, and they think that it's all their fault.
Yeah.
So you don't feel like you can go and tell a different leader like, hey, I actually felt really uncomfortable when he was asking me all of this.
So I felt like it was my fault, and that I deserved discomfort in that moment because I did the bad thing. Like I was so ashamed, and so I deserved to have that conversation.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which in hindsight, we know is not true.
Yeah.
But so you finished out that year, and then what did you, yay, good for you.
Huzzah.
Huzzah.
Worst year of my life.
Oh, I'm so sorry. What did you end up doing after that? Did you end up still going to Mozambique?
I did, yeah. So I went back home. I ended up working for just a little bit, which who I worked for plays into a little bit of my story. So I will say, I'm going to drop a little. I worked for polygamists. I worked for a polygamous family, and that will come into play later, but ended up working for them, saving up money, and then I got on a jet plane and went to Mozambique for the first time when I was 18.
Oh my gosh. I bet were you feeling like, okay, I'm finally stepping into my calling?
Yes. Everything is coming into fruition. I am stepping into what, because I had received so many prophetic words growing up about it, because everybody knew I wanted to be a missionary. And then anytime a guest speaker would come into the church, my parents would talk to them about it. I would talk to them about it. So then whenever prophetic word times came, I'm going to get a prophetic word about being a missionary and all that. So it was a really big deal. And honestly, that harvest school, because I went to Iris Global, Heidi Baker's mission school, which is called Harvest School in Pemba, Mozambique. And that first experience of being there, because I later became a staff member, was equally the most beautiful, most fun, amazing time I've ever had, and the hardest, worst, what is going on experience of my life. It was so such a juxtaposition of those two things, because one, it's all of my dreams are coming true. I'm in Mozambique. This is amazing. I'm with like-minded people that are all going after the same thing. There is nothing. I tell people all the time, I will never reach the high of being in Mozambique again, only because like you are so separated from everything and you don't really have like your phones, like you don't have running water. Like we didn't have running water during my school. Like we are just
My
living.
gosh.
Yeah, like we're like taking like bottle showers, like standing in a bucket
Yeah.
so we can save that water to like power flush the toilets. Like it's just really a super unique experience. And I ended up at the same time having that comparison situation where I am desperate for God to do what he is doing with everyone else, because Harvest School is BSSM. Everyone is rolling on the floor. Everyone's having open visions. Everyone's going to heaven. Everyone is claiming, have gold dust. I've got, it's the
Yeah.
most intense experiences. And you feel so left out if you are not willing, in my opinion now, to play the game. That is my opinion now. I will say it as anecdotally. But that was like my experience, was just being like, man, I don't know if God sees me, because all these people are claiming all these things are happening and I just do not have it.
Well, it becomes this, I don't know, kind of this competition of who knows God the most or who's having the most experiences. And you're finally in a room with everybody who is really sold out. So you might have been the most sold out
Yeah.
person at your church, but then you come here and it's
Yes.
like, it's a room full of all of these people who also feel like their name is going to be heard
Yes.
and that they are here to change the world too. And some people could say you saying like play the game is cynical, but I feel like I feel the same way about Bethel. I feel not everybody,
Yeah.
but there definitely was a vibe, especially if you wanted to work in Bethel and you wanted to maybe be a revival group pastor one day, you wanted to work your way up and be the next Sean Bowles or the Heidi Baker. It's a lot of networking. It's a lot of selling your story and your faith.
And it's interesting because like at the time I was still like a constant thread throughout my life has been like, I believe everyone else is experiencing these things. I feel like I'm the only one who isn't. I believed everyone was actually telling the truth, and like, as far as I know, people could have been telling the truth. But I, most often, other than those examples of like, I've got the goosebumps and I've got I think that could be God. Like, other than those experiences, I was mostly lying to myself and others to validate like what I thought was true, not about my experience, but about my like worldview, my theology, I wanted so desperately for all of those things to happen to me. But then at the same time, the idea of like the currency thing where I was like, I want a voice in this because I care about it. I know it sounds so jacked up to say like, I lied because I believed. I don't know how to reconcile that now, but I really did. Like I believed everybody else was having, and I wanted it so desperately. I really wanted it. So then I'm like in the midst of all these people that are crying out, asking for all these things. And I was so devout, so scrupulous about everything. Like I was such an annoying person because I became like the worst person to ever hang out with. Well, I don't think we should really be listening.
In what way?
I don't think we should really be listening to that. Oh, could you not say that word? That really like offends Holy Spirit. Oh, could you not do this? I was calling out everyone. I was so concerned about keeping myself like pure and holy because I thought that my big thing in Harvest School was I desperately wanted to be marked by the holiness of God. That was what I wanted more than anything. I was like, I want this experience that everybody is like talking about where, they're being like burned from the inside out and all. And I became like so obsessive about it to the point where like, I was like, God, I don't care what it takes. Like you can hurt me. Like I have journals. It's so bad. I have journals where I'm like begging God, like if it burns, and I was meaning literally, if you are burning the sin out of me, then do it. Like I want you, whatever it takes. And I don't know where that jump came from because I grew up like with a very typical kind of evangelical view of like you ask for forgiveness and you're forgiven. Like that, I don't know why it became so intense, but that became the main focal point of my school. And so I have all these people around me and like feeling like I'm completely left out. Because all these other people are saying like, oh my gosh, I went into the throne room of heaven and I saw, and I'm just like, I've been asking for it. I've been fasting. I've been, praying. I've been avoiding doing all these things. I've been super sincere. I've been, which is like, that became a real sticking point for me moving further, like away from Iris and seeing people speak and then being able to have the opportunity of seeing them behind closed doors of the way they live their lives. But then the stories they would tell of the things that were happening to them, I was like, that can't be right. Because you are saying, like, I am living, and I know there are going to be people that are believers that are like, well, you were doing works, and so that's why you didn't get it. And all these other people were by faith. Please don't.
You can hear the rebuttal when
yes,
you've been...
Yes. Like I understand, but I can't convince you, but I was so sincere in it. And I wasn't trying to be religious. I wasn't trying to be works-based. Like I wanted it so desperately. But then I'm seeing these people that are like talking about drinking and flipping people off, like once they're backstage or whatever. And I'm just like, that can't be right. Because I really care and I really believe in what I'm saying. I believe that Holy Spirit will leave me if I do something wrong. I believe I will grieve Holy Spirit if I do something wrong. I believe that I can be like, I don't know. I was just so confused because I was like, I don't think you guys actually believe this, because if you did, you would be terrified. You would be terrified of the things you're doing. Like you would be so scared of like this awesome, like awesome God who can do anything. Like if you mess up, I don't know. I got real weird in Mozambique. I got real weird, but also got real weird in a real fun way. Had the best time. I don't know how to lighten this now, but I had the best.
Well, I wasn't going to have you lighten it. I was going to ask you, what was the hardest part, would you say, of being in Mozambique?
So I had several experiences because I went back and staffed, and I guess for clarification, do you mean just in my harvest school or just in general in Mozambique?
In general.
Ooh, okay. I started to lose my faith, and I was actively serving with Iris on their relief team after they had a cyclone in Dondo, Beira, Mozambique, and I was terrified. I was so scared. So, because all of a sudden it became very real to me, like how kind of real and dangerous it was what I was doing. Because most people have this idea of like, God is on my side, I can do anything. And they go into like crazy situations, just kind of being really willy-nilly about it. Because they're like, Jesus will protect me. And it was the first time that I was like, I don't know if I actually believe in this. And if I don't, I am here with no protection. Like, what am I doing? It became super scary. Like, I was there during a time of, like, civil unrest, which is pretty common in Mozambique in general, but we were there during an election season, and there's just lots of crazy stuff happening, and I just thought, what in the world am I doing here? Like, we had a guy that broke into my room. We had rebar across the windows and then just screens. And he sliced the screen, and while I was sleeping, had his arm in and was like grabbing stuff off my nightstand, trying to like take stuff.
Who was he?
Just like a national,
man breaking in?
He just like jumped over and like just some guy. And so it was like normally.
Were you terrified?
Yeah, normally I feel like I'd be like, because we had so many experiences where things had been like taken. Like I was standing with one of my friends, and a guy was watching us while we were having a conversation the whole time, sitting on our front porch in Pemba. And as soon as we stood up to finish the conversation, she sat her laptop down, and he came around the corner and grabbed the laptop and ran, and clearly was watching and waiting that entire time for her to set it down. Had stuff like that happen and was just like, meh, okay, But then I have this guy reaching in, and I have like my faith is starting to kind of crumble. Oh, I was terrified. I was so scared. And it's so weird. Like when that like blanket kind of, I mean, the umbrella.
The umbrella. When you weren't as positive that the umbrella was there
Yes.
and that you were going to be protected. I mean, I think I even look back at my time at Bethel and feeling like, man, I really just assumed that I was safe because these mission trips are so sanctioned by the church,
Yeah.
and it feels like a lighthearted thing to do. Oh, you go on a
Yep.
mission trip and stuff. But when we were at Bethel, we literally got taken onto an army base when I was in, it's not called Burma anymore, but we were hopping the country. We left Thailand and we went somewhere else, and we got put on their military base because we were illegally crossing the border, and they had giant rifles. And I look back on that now and I'm
Yes.
like, that could have gone such another way. That's crazy. We could have been arrested. We could have been
Yes.
in prison. And it was just normal. It's like, well, God will protect us. Like
That was literally
Yeah.
the realization where I was like, what am I doing here? Like,
Yeah.
this is actually, and I like started to understand all the people that would like come to Harvest School and they were all so terrified of where they were and what was happening. And I was just like, why are you guys so scared? Like, it's not a big deal. It's fine. But it was. It actually was a big deal. So that was probably like the worst experience, was like kind of being there and realizing like, oh, this is not, and actively serving with a ministry while your faith is crumbling is not super fun.
What do you feel like started your initial thoughts towards deconstruction? Because I can imagine being raised in the church. I mean, we've gone into your history, you feeling like this was your mission in life, to be a missionary and to be in ministry. How did that even start that you, I don't know, began to question it?
Yeah, so I had mentioned earlier through a little tidbit down about the polygamists that I worked for. So that really started my deconstruction, actually. I didn't know that that was what was happening, but I started working for a polygamous family and cult, I guess is the better word. But I started looking into Mormonism a lot because I wanted to know the differences between what this polygamous cult believed in versus what mainstream Mormons believe. And I like grew up around a lot of Mormons, so I understood like basics, but I just started getting really, really into it. Researched a ton, listened to a lot of people who were ex-Mormons and like their stories of coming out of Mormonism. And it just kind of all started to crack my shelf a little bit. Like in the Mormon world, they call it your shelf. Like it's like things that you don't really understand. You just go, oh, I'm just gonna put that up on a shelf. I don't know. I'll worry about that later. And then there are certain things that start to just kind of crack it, and it'll all fall down eventually. And so I started to have just these thoughts of like, I know that I've been taught my entire life that Mormonism is a cult, my entire life. But like, I'm reading this stuff and this actually doesn't seem that much crazier than what I believe. Like, it's crazy, but like I kind of believe some really crazy stuff too. And like Mormons believe in personal revelation, and like charismatics believe in personal revelation. And Mormons would say like, oh, well, I know it's true because I had this, they often will give testimony and say, I felt the burning in my bosom. Like, I know that the church is true, and I know that Joseph Smith is a true prophet. And I just started thinking like, well, we also go based on like experiential stuff to justify like our, and people can go into like what kind of historical proof we have, but it just started to kind of like get to me a little bit where I was like, well, that's kind of weird. And then I started hearing stories about information control within Mormonism, where people, church leaders are saying, well, over and over and over again, people would tell stories about when they started to find out the truth of Mormonism. They started to find out about the historicity of the Book of Mormon, anything like that, that when they asked people, well, do you know this? And they'd be like, yeah, like, well, we do. And then they'd say, well, why didn't you tell me? And it's like, well, that's not very like edifying. That's not very faith building. That's not faith affirming. So we just didn't share. And that's a little bit more substance that you're not really like ready for. And so I'd heard this over and over again. and continued to learn about Mormonism for like a decade. Like that just kind of became something that I was super into. I'd read so many books on it, looked into all of it. It became like my hyperfixation for sure, which sounds really odd to then teeter into my deconstruction, but just started to really doubt the things that I had been taught. I had a couple instances of like how I had said that I believed that everyone else was telling the truth, but then I was the only one who was lying. I ended up moving. I had been serving in Mozambique. I moved back and decided that I was going to move across the country because I was like, God, I'm going to give you one last shot. I've tried. Like, I'm really, my faith started to fall apart while I was in Mozambique. I'm not really getting it. And I'm like, I'm going to give you one more shot. I'm going to move. And I made up a bunch of stuff, prophetic stuff about me moving because that felt like my only out. Like it was the only way I could leave. So I essentially made up a prophetic reason of why I was supposed to move across the country because I felt like that was how I could get kind of permission in my circle to do it, and ended up being asked to meet with a prophet before I moved to confirm whether or not this was the right thing for me to do. Met with this prophet, and he ended up looking me in the eye and saying, you're in the exact spot that God wants you to be. He's ordered your steps. This is, God's will for you to do this. Basically confirmed that the move was the right thing.
Interesting.
And so part of me, it's really weird because part of me was like, okay, this is not real because I lied about all of these things. But then I was like,
yeah,
I did ask God. I did say, I'm giving you one more shot. So like, maybe this is like, I wanted to believe. It's not like, that wasn't off the table. So then I go, I move across the country and it ended up being horrible. Worst experience. Like the church that I joined was just terrible. And I had all these awful experiences there. And so eventually ended up moving out of that church and had kind of stepped away and was so hurt by that experience. Like I know people don't like to say like, that they were hurt and that's why they left church because it feels like it invalidates it. I don't care. I was hurt and I left church. Like I stepped.
What was the biggest thing you were hurt by?
So to make it as short as I can, basically, I had a bunch of stuff that went down at the church, like just things I didn't agree with. There's lots of like, misogynistic, really scary, like financial handling, all this different stuff where I was just getting some red flags and was like, I don't really like this. I think I'm going to dip. And I ended up having a meeting scheduled with the pastor, told him why I was leaving before I left the church. And he scheduled it out, the meeting, and he ended up doing a sermon the day before our scheduled meeting. And it was 4 bad reasons why people leave the church, and spent the entire sermon ripping me to shreds in front of everybody. Came up with like all these crazy, like he started talking about like feminists. He started talking about like just like worship leaders. Like he was just like ripping me apart the entire time, like guessing at reasons why I was going to leave before I got the chance to even sit down and talk to him.
And telling you why they're not good reasons.
Yes. And he even said multiple times during the sermon, if you think this is about you, it is. And it was just so devastating to me because I had like poured everything into being at that church. Like I really did, because I was so sincere and like, I want this all to be true. So I'm going to plug in, I'm going to do the thing. I gave them so many hours. I gave them so many dollars. I really wanted, like, I had a very sincere pursuit of God in that. And then, just got destroyed. And it was what I moved out there for. Like I didn't have any other community. So I like am just weeping. And then I have the meeting with him and I'm kind of just like, I don't know why I'm here. You already got everything off your chest. And he just kind of gaslit me and was like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? And I was like, the sermon that you just gave yesterday, what are you talking? And he's like, I was worried you would think that was about you. You literally said it was about me. Like, you knew this meeting was scheduled. What are you talking about? And it wasn't like I just had a random meeting scheduled. I told him, I'm going to be stepping away from the church. I would like to schedule a meeting to talk to you about it. He knew exactly why I was leaving, like exactly what the meeting was for. So that was not very fun. That was very hurtful. I ended up, I was working for a person that owned a company that attended that church. And I had met with them before to say, hey, I'm going to be stepping away from the church. Do I need to look for a job? And they were like, no, of course not. Like, we're family. That's so silly. Like, of course you can still, And then within a month, I got fired after leaving the church. And they told me that it was a God thing. They were like, yeah, we're actually like really.
It was a God thing to fire you.
Yeah. They said it was a God thing. And then they told me when I asked them, like, well, because I had like kind of just this feeling like they're going to let me go. And I kept asking them, like, is my job safe? Like, just tell me, do I need to go look for a job? Like, I'll go do it, but I need to know. And they kept being like, what are you talking about? No. And then afterwards, I had ended up talking to one of my supervisors after I got fired. And I was like, what happened? Because I've been talking to you this entire time. And he said, well, to be honest with you, like, we have been having conversations about it for a while. And I said, when did those conversations start? And he was like, well, unfortunately, around the same time you left the church. And I was just like, cool. So I got fired. That was bad. And I tried to go to another church. And it was just too much. I was like, I need a break. I need away from this. I can't do it. And the other church didn't do anything wrong. Lovely people. I was just like, I'm too hurt to be in this environment right now. And had just, after a while, had decided, like, I don't know if I believe in any of this. Like, it's just all stacking up against me. And had, like, the basics of the Bible, like, that were really hard for me to swallow, that were always like, the flood. Because I grew up fundamentalist, like, we believed in the inerrancy of the Bible. And so I was like, the flood, that isn't really, like, Exodus. Like, do we have, proof of that many people traveling? Like, do we have, like, those kinds of things were, but I didn't really look into it. And then I happened upon a TikTok of one named Jubilee Dawn.
Oh my gosh, stop. Really?
I listened to one of your TikToks and you had mentioned this prophet. At the time, you only talked about the prophet. Oh my gosh. And I was like, man, that's crazy. That sounds really familiar. Like, I don't know. And then you had mentioned that you went on Something's Wrong, or what is it called? Right?
Yeah, Something Was Wrong.
Yeah, Something Was Wrong. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I want to listen to this. And I listened to it, and you're telling the story, and you're talking about this prophet. And then, I don't know if you remember this, but you play a clip of his voice or they did. They inserted a clip.
Yeah.
And as soon as I heard it, I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I know exactly who that is. So to rewind a little bit, our family had received a prophetic word from Sean Bowles in like 2017, I think, around that time. It might have been 2015, in between there. And that was the one last like thread of my faith that, like, all the other stuff I could explain away. I could be like, oh, well, I haven't really seen this, or, oh, that could be explained by this. But that, as far as experiential stuff, I was like, no way. Because in my brain, I'm like, who would do that? Like, who could possibly, like, I don't know. Every time I talk to people about it, they'd be like, well, couldn't he look up? And I'd be like, no. What are you talking? Like, he could.
Do you want to explain what his shtick is?
Yeah. So he, this one makes it even worse. So for our prophetic word that we got, he shows up at the conference and he says, a year ago, I was in Australia and I was praying beforehand. God gave me a bunch of prophetic words. I started reading them out on stage and nobody was responding. And the Lord told me to pocket them for another time. When I got here today, the Lord reminded me of those words and asked me to pull them out and that now was the time to share. So he pulls out a list and he says that it is timestamped on his phone. I mean, he goes, yeah, it's timestamped on my phone, right? You know, he just says it real quick. he starts listing out, and he calls out my maiden name. He calls out I was there with my parents, and he calls out where we're from, calls out what they do, calls out all this stuff, and just gives really specific information about us. And I'm like, I just got the golden ticket. I'm freaking out. I'm like, wow, God sees me. It's all I've wanted my entire life. Like, I'm going to get so emotional now thinking about like how desperate I was for God to see me. And so I'm finally, and it wasn't even about me. Like, the word literally wasn't about me. It was, shockingly, it was about my parents. Because guess who registered for the conference and guess who didn't? Like, I went to that church and didn't register. They didn't, and they registered.
For anybody who's new to Sean Bowles, this prophet, he had many ways of getting a hold of people's names, but one main way, the biggest way, is through conference registrations. So it would make sense that he would call out your parents because they're the ones who registered.
And never mentioned me, even though I was sitting right there with them, but mentioned all this other stuff. So still, I was like, God sees us. Like, he sees us. And I had told, yes, I had told so many people, like, I got a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense, but that one, like, I cannot shake. Like, it cannot, I can't let go of that because that just seems so specific. And he named so many things. So, like, and I hear his voice on something was wrong. And I was like, oh no. So for the first time, I'm terrified, I'm so scared. Touch not God's anointed. Like, I'm like, I'm so scared to like look this up. And I just type Sean Bowles, false prophet. All these articles come up, specifically the article about the proof of the Azusa Now, which I was there. I was at Azusa Now when that happened. And
no way.
Yeah, I was there. I literally was like home on a break from being in Mozambique and flew out to LA. I was there. And so I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's, and basically this woman had proved that something that she had on her social media or she had family members that weren't on her social media, but they were her family members. And he called out the people who were on her social media, but didn't mention a daughter that wasn't on social media. And a couple of other things.
I read that exact article.
Yep. And
in 2021. Or around there. Yeah. So, I mean.
I'm so cool that you got to it in 2021 because I got to it in the year of our Lord 2024. So that like, it hit me so hard. And I called someone that was really close to, and I asked them about it. And I was like, hey, like, have you heard about this Sean Bowles stuff? And they were like, well, tell me what you've heard, which was like, what? And I said, well, that he's data mining on social media. Like, he's getting all of this information. It's not real. And they said, yeah, I did hear that. And I was like, whoa, isn't this like, this is crazy. This is so bad. Like, oh my God. And I'm so worked up about it. And I said, how long have you known? And they said, a couple years, maybe a few years. And in that moment, I was like, I'm completely crushed. And I said, why didn't you tell me? And they said, well, I didn't think it would help you at the time. And that was like eyes wide open. Everything I had ever heard from all of these post-Mormons that have been like, why didn't you tell me this information? Oh, well, we didn't think it would be faith affirming. Why didn't you tell me this? I didn't think it would help you on your journey. Why didn't you? Like, the information control immediately, like, it hit me like a Mack truck. And I was like, I think I'm being lied to. I think I'm being lied to. And immediately that didn't lead into me like worrying about any of the charismatic stuff, because I was like, forget any of that. I got to look into the Bible. All of a sudden, I'm looking at contradictions in the Bible, which previously are not in my worldview. Like, the Bible is inerrant, the Bible is infallible, there are none. And suddenly, I am finding so many contradictions, which for a lot of people that don't grow up in fundamentalism, it's not an issue. So I understand that, and I validate that, like, belief amongst people who are still believers. To me, that was crushing. That was so like devastating to realize, like, in the simplest way. And it was always in front of me. I could have opened my Bible and like stacked those gospels, just the simplest thing, even the gospels themselves, stacked them up against each other and been like, whew, buddy, there are a lot of problems here. And I never did. And so the amount of like disappointment and betrayal I felt, and yet also like extreme relief to be like, oh my gosh, like I've been trying to make this work my entire life. And I've been so like sincere, and it has cost me everything. I have given everything to this, to have like come to the realization that like, I don't believe this. I don't believe in this anymore, was like weirdly initially probably more peace than anything. Like it was so much relief. And there's like continually day by day, like feelings of betrayal and being like, who knows what, that's really hard. That's really hard for me now, where I'm like, how many of the adults in my life like actually knew versus didn't? Because I'm sure there are some who like, that was the way they were raised, that was the way they were taught, and they're just continuing to teach the same thing. But I'm also positive that there are people who learned this, who went to school and learned this and then chose to teach a completely different narrative. And that is so hard to work through. But literally realizing that like I had been lied to about Sean Pulse was like the end of my faith. Like it started the massive domino of looking into the Bible, and then that was it. And I still like, yeah. I look into it. It is still my favorite topic. Like I read and listen to podcasts and listen to audiobooks every single day. It drives my husband crazy because it is all I want to talk to him about. I'm like, did you know? And I go on these big rants, but it's still like, I am constantly learning more about all of this, but the more I learn, like the less I believe. Like it hasn't turned into something faith affirming for me. But that doesn't, again, you can believe whatever you want, listener. I'm not.
It's totally. And like, I mean, I know a lot of listeners are still Christian and some aren't. And it reminds me of, I don't know if you have seen, I think his name's the Skeptical Pastor.
Yeah.
Have you seen him on TikTok? So he's someone who he talks about, well, how should I say it? I mean, there's a few of these pastors who I've seen before where they will say, I still believe, but what I will tell you is that pretty much everybody who goes to seminary, or a large portion of people who go to seminary, have a faith crisis, because when they learn about the history of the Bible, it's a lot. And there's a lot of nuance and a lot of things that you have to really work through. And it ends with a lot of people leaving the faith in seminary. And they are also kind of told to water it down. And it's like a thing that they will tell them. They will say, simplify it for your congregation, because they will not be able to hold the nuance of the Bible not necessarily being perfect. And that is what a lot of, I think, going back to what you were saying of that anger that you feel of, how many of you guys know this? How many of you guys knew that the Bible there's a lot of nuance there?
Yeah. I mean,
and
even
it's
this,
not as black and white as we were taught.
This is crazy, because this is like amongst almost all the majority consensus of believing and non-believing biblical scholars. Like the authors of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, is not who wrote Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Do you know how mind-blowing that was to hear? I was like, no, that's not it. And I can't tell you the amount of research I did to try to prove that wrong. I did it. I read like Case for Christ. I did all that, and it's just everything has come up empty, where I'm just like, okay, all right. I don't know what to do with this anymore. But it's been like, I don't know, it's been super relieving. I keep saying the same thing, but at the same time, to try to unravel something that has influenced your life and influenced every decision you've ever made for the entirety of your life, to like unravel that is the hardest process I have ever done. Like deconstruction is the hardest thing. Like people think that it is just this simple thing. Everybody always says it like, oh, deconstructioners, they just want to go sin. That's all they, and it's like I am not that stupid. I'm not that dumb. I would not do this. I would not be in the place that I am. Like I would not put myself through this if I didn't feel like this was true. If I didn't feel like I was chasing truth, if I didn't, and that's not to say that like I've arrived. Like I'm very comfortable saying I don't know. But I'm also not going to like put faith in something that I have evidence against, I guess, or like I feel like there isn't enough evidence for.
Yeah.
So it's been really hard and to be viewed as like weak by people that once thought I was very like strong. Like I just recently, within the last like 2 weeks, I posted on my personal social media that I was no longer a Christian. That was the biggest thing that I've ever done. And I put it all out there and told my reasons why and just said, hey, like, this is where I'm at. And the response was, like, really lovely. Like, people were very kind. I'm sure other people were talking about it. But, like, no longer feel like I can control the narrative in the circles that I once belonged to. Like, I can no longer, like, have a voice in those spaces to be like, hey, no, like, have you thought of this? And not even to convince them to believe the way I do, but just like, hey, there are actually really valid reasons of why people are leaving. There are really valid reasons of why someone would walk away from their faith. Like I wasn't a lukewarm Christian. I gave everything to it. Like I would move overseas at the drop of a hat if I felt like I was supposed to, like it, and I did like multiple times. So it's really hard to hear that being spun, that people are like, you just wanted to sin, or you just backslidden, or it's like, I wanted with every fiber of my being for this to be real.
I think what's crazy is this narrative that I've seen online too of people coming after ex-Christians or people who just deconstruct, whether or not they reconstruct after that. And they say that you were never a Christian to begin with. And when you were saying, I was so devout, I was so pure of heart, like I really believed this and would have given anything to it. I think that while I'm in the deconstruction space and I see a lot of these other creators who post their stories, I mean, it's all people who were in ministry. It was the people who were willing to die for their faith, the people who were running after God so fiercely. So the accusation of, well, you just never really believed.
Yeah.
Like you were never really saved. And I mean, there is some peace in knowing that that's absolutely not true.
Yeah.
I mean, I can 100% say that is not the case. But yeah, it's hard to deal with the loss of status. I don't know if that's the right word.
Yeah.
But my best friend, Kenzie, who I do the overshare hour with, she had talked with me about it before, and she was saying how she really lost her status in her family.
Yeah.
Like she used to be seen as the one that people would call when they needed prayer, the wise one. I mean, when she was 19 and was a missionary, and I mean, she had 2 kids by the age of, I think, 21, and was just seen as the go-getter. Adults were coming to her for advice.
Yeah.
And for that to just shatter, I mean, she lost everything,
Yep.
all of these relationships, and they just see her as super broken. She's also queer now, so it's just like, oh, what a disappointment, and it's hard to deal with when you were once so freely given all of this acceptance and all of this favor, and people just thought so highly of you, and then for you to have to deal with the crash and the downfall of, oh, people see me as lost and tainted.
Yeah.
And there's actually nothing that any of us can do about that, because I'm sure what's so funny, I've never shared this before, but on my social media has been growing, like Instagram and TikTok, but oh my gosh, on Facebook, whenever I post anything on Facebook, I get like nothing, like no likes from people who used to like my stuff all the time, but I met all of those people in church.
Yeah.
And It is so funny to see the fall from grace that I have had in my Facebook community.
Yeah,
I know that it's disappointing
Yeah,
for
and
them, for
that's why I
sure.
posted, honestly, because I started making TikToks and I don't have this like big following or anything, but I was like, this is really important to me to share this, like not even for the sake of followers, but like it feels oh, you had someone on your podcast recently and I don't remember who it was, but they talked about like almost like a repentance by like talking about this stuff, like that you
Yeah.
have to like it's accountability to be able to like talk about it, and that's what's so important to me is like I need to get this off my chest and be able to talk about it. But I felt so disjointed between what I was posting on TikTok versus what was on my personal page, and there were so many people on my personal page, unless I had talked to them personally, did not know that I had like deconstructed, did not know anything. So then I also was like censoring myself and things I would post, like if I like had a picture and there's like, you know, a beer can in the corner, that's not even a big deal, but like I would, you know, because of the circle that is most of my social media, I would like not post that because I was so worried about people like viewing me as a Christian and then judging me accordingly. So I was like self-censoring myself. But I've had so many people in regard to people saying like, oh, you know, you just weren't really a true Christian and and I've thought about it a lot and been like, okay, let's say that is true. Like, let's say that I wasn't a real Christian. If that's the case, and I didn't actually fully have Jesus, like, in my heart, the way that we talk about it, why would I ever want anything to do with a God that makes himself so elusive that somebody like me who pursued him my entire life could not access him, no matter what I did? Like, if that is true, that I wasn't actually a Christian ever, which a lot of people believe, like, how fair is that? Like, and people can say, well, God is God. He can do whatever he wants. Yeah, I don't know if I am really too cool on that kind of God that wouldn't honor my heart, that really wanted him. Like, I talk about it all the time of like, you know, gosh, if you seek me, you will find me when you seek me with all your heart. Like, how I did that. I really did. And I didn't find it. And everybody, you know, can convince themselves or me like, oh, well, you can just probably try. They can try and say, well, have you tried it this way? Or I love when people say, oh, you grew up in the charismatic church. Well, that's your problem. Have you tried the Baptist?
I get that a lot on YouTube.
Have you tried the Baptist church? And it's like, I don't know if that's going to do it either. Like, like, the meat's the same. I don't know what's going to change about that. But anyway, I'm going on a big rant. But it bothers me so much when people say that, because I'm like, how horrible of a father to not honor that.
Yeah. If it were true that you are chasing him with everything in you and he didn't find you or come close to you, as the Bible talks about, you know, so obviously, you know your heart and where you were coming from. And I think all of us in the deconstruction space, like, we get it, you know, and I think that that's why it's so important to share our stories, because it's so isolating. Like, despite the fact that there's such a beautiful and rich and amazing community online for people who are going through this.
Online.
I think we are all, we are all on our own little islands where we feel very, I don't know, set aside, looked down upon. And I really don't know how I would be able to do this without, I don't know, the community from online and not feeling like I'm crazy.
Yeah.
Because it does make you feel like you were crazy. So how have you dealt with and coped with the fallout of all of those things?
Not well.
So real. Healed-ish.
Heavy on the ish. No, it's It's been so hard. I mean, I have tried several different types of like therapy, just trying to like work through what's going on, who is the and then it's also like there's so much tied up in it. There's so much tied up in your faith, like your community, your everything. So it's more than deconstructing just your beliefs. You know that, like you've seen it in these circles. Like it is all encompassing, especially when you've given your entire life to all of it, right? So it's touched every area of my life. So I think coping has looked a lot lately, like actually allowing myself to be angry, which a lot of, that's a lot of accusation as well. It's like, you're just angry. And it's crazy because I don't feel like I ever let myself be angry like the entire time I was a Christian. Like I felt like that was like a sin. Like I just would very quickly shut that down and I would move towards like, you know, heartbroken or sad far more often than anger. And I felt just a sense of like justice, anger in me, which is like currently in this state has protected my heart a lot. Like to feel justified in a lot of my feelings, and feel anger for the way I've been treated and for the time that I've lost and for the ways in which I've been lied to. Like that is really significant for me right now because when everything first came crumbling down, I was just sad, super sad. I didn't move out of sadness for quite some time. It still is sad, but in this current phase, and it'll ebb and flow and I'll be back to sad tomorrow, I'm sure. But I think that's like a new skill that I've added is just allowing myself to be like legitimately angry about that kind of stuff and like, you know, and then just allowing myself to be surrounded by people that are a whole lot different than I am. That has been like the most healing thing, like putting myself in communities that I would normally not associate with while I was a Christian in an effort to be like holy and whatever and set apart and to realize like just how beautiful people's lives are. And additionally, the acceptance of a small, beautiful life is the best thing coming out of the charismatic world, realizing that I don't have to be this super prominent, well-known speaker traveling around the world, doing all these crazy things. God is doing this, that, and the other. Realizing like how beautiful my life is, that I'm just like, I'm living in a small town in Kentucky with my husband and my dog. And that's so beautiful. And that if that's the rest of my life, that's perfect. Like, I don't have to have these extreme callings. I don't have to have this like massive platform. Like I am so content and have such extraordinarily stunning life. Just me, my husband, and my dog. And I love it. So I'm just like soaking that in and like the relief of like having all those expectations like fall off my shoulders. I'm like, this is so nice. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. There's like so much more, but
yeah, I love the idea of just embracing being able to have a simple life and not feel that pressure to make a name for yourself or be the most anointed or constantly feel like you were just begging for more and more and more and just actually let yourself live. Because I think that's one thing, I didn't do the last 10 years was just live my life and enjoy it. But I know you have been sharing on TikTok. So how has that been for you?
It's been very, I don't know.
I love it. I love you're sharing.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's been so nice because it's like, I feel like I'm posting the most niche stuff and to have people, even like one person comment like, oh my gosh, I didn't know anybody else had ever, I'm like, thank you so much. Like it truly is like so selfish. It's for me where I'm just like, I just need to feel like validated in these things. And sometimes I'm like, I like sharing. I love teaching. I really do. Like I like teaching people stuff. I think that's super fun. But a lot of it is like that community. Like I don't have that community here of like deconstructed anyone, especially because like I didn't go to church here in the state that I live in. Like I have never gone to church in this state. So I don't know of anyone that's deconstructed in that way, and specifically charismatic. So like online is the place that I can find that community, and like finding creators like you and realizing like, oh my gosh, like they've also experienced that. And like it can be a little bit of a struggle to not get caught in like an echo chamber. Like I don't particularly enjoy that because I find myself slipping into it. And similarly to like being in the church, where I just start like aligning myself with beliefs that other people in the deconstruction world have, and then not really seeking that out for myself. So that's something I have to constantly check while being in those places online, is like, do I actually believe this, or am I just kind of going along with what everybody else is doing? But for the most part, it has been a positive and like very healing experience being online. Just so weird.
That's
Such a weird thing to say.
No, I love your videos. If you want like history of the Bible videos, guys, go.
I'm not a Bible scholar. I'm not a Bible scholar.
No, you're not. But it's very like accessible. Like I understand it,
Yeah.
so it's fun. I like your videos. So where can people find you?
I knew you were going to ask me that, and I was like, what is my handle? So bear with.
I will also link it in the show notes.
Okay,
so
let's
people
just
will be able
open
to
up
click on it.
TikTok real quick. Okay, my TikTok is at AWNA 1997. Auna 1997.
Yes, I will link it too. That way people can find you. But thank you so much
my
for
gosh,
coming on
thank you
and
for
sharing your
having me.
story. This has been the best. And just so you guys know, we went on a million tangents throughout that like weren't recorded and are getting cut out because we just kept getting off topic.
We did. It's been a minute.
It's been great. Yeah. But thank you so much for coming on. And if you guys could please leave a review, that would mean so much to me. And also, if you guys didn't know, I have another podcast with Kenzie who had some episodes on Healdish, and we do advice. So if you have any situations that you want advice on, we do that. And that is just such a fun podcast. I love doing it. Some of them are silly, but there's a lot of deconstruction content on that podcast as well. So yeah, if you guys could check that out, that would mean the world to me. But I will see you guys next week for another episode of Healdish.